let's make sure that we got some things working here. But as we're doing that as well, this guy is Frank Ferragini, aka Frankie Flowers from City TV's Breakfast Television and City Line. I am indeed, what am I? I am a 4-time best-selling garden author. I'm actually got a lifetime of experience in the world of growing things. My family's business is Bradford Greenhouse Garden Gallery. We have 2 garden centers, one in Bradford, one in Barrie. I grew up in the fields of the Holland Marsh, as well as in the Cookstown Marsh within the greenhouses. I've been in greenhouses everywhere, right across the world. I've been in greenhouses and I've been in gardens everywhere. And I come here each and every week. Well, I try to come here each and every week just to help you with your garden questions, to kind of go over some of the things that could be happening in your garden, spend a half an hour. And then hopefully, if you didn't watch it live, you actually maybe watched it, saw some of the comments. And with that, you actually provided some information, inspiration, or even just asked a question on your own. There's a community of gardeners that join us here and just people that like plants. And with that, we share our experiences and we just hopefully have a better journey in the world of growing things, because no matter what happens, you will kill a plant. I'm going to tell you, you will kill a plant, but we're on to hopefully that you don't kill some plants that are out there. Let's give some early shout outs to Matthew Amos, who's joining us today. We got a big shout out from Penetangwisheen right now from Debbie. We got another Debbie that's saying good afternoon. Frankie as well. We got Marianne saying good afternoon as well from Beaton, Ontario, or good evening. What is it? 5 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock afternoon or evening. Well, after time change, it feels like it's evening because it's dark outside. Yes, indeed, it's dark. And while we are going into daylight saving time, and we have gone through that the last weekend, we really get to notice how short the daylight hours have become. And what that means is the amount of daylight that we have is so minimal that plants, even in our home, a tropical plant like, let's say, this pothos that's sitting here as well, even though they're in our home and they appear to be green, many times they're actually dormant, as well as the trees that are going dormant outside. Because of that lack of daylight hours, they don't grow as frequent and grow as much. And that means that indoors at this time of the year, it's essential that you pay attention to your watering, because the plants are not actively growing, they're not consuming as much moisture. And with that, you don't have to water as frequently, unless you have really bright rooms, a lot of airflow, a lot of air circulation that's going through the house, or you have pots that are actually more porous. That's when you may need to water. But really right now, please, if there's anything I can tell you, and you'll hear me tell this so often when people tell me about their indoor plants, make sure you allow them to dry in between waterings, because just like you don't want to sit in a tub for 24 hours. Well, plant doesn't want to sit in water for days on pond days. Brenda has a question about a cyclamen or a cyclamen. Just got some beautiful cyclamen plants. How to keep them happy? Well, cyclamen are a beautiful indoor flowering plant, potted plant, that really doesn't need as much light once they're in bloom. The key about cyclamen is they do tend to like a cooler room or even a cooler environment. When we grew them, and we have grown them over the past in our greenhouses, we only kept them at about between 55 to 65 degrees in terms of a temperature in Fahrenheit. So to put that in terms of Celsius, that's somewhere around 15 to about 18 degrees is where you would want them to be. So if you can, put them in a room that at night gets a little bit cooler. So key for them. Allow them to dry in between watering. They don't need to be bright and directly in front of a window. They can even be in an eastern exposure, but they're a beautiful plant. But coolness is what keeps them a little bit better out there. Brittany saying, hi, Frankie. I say hi right back to you, Brittany. AC Callan saying, yo, hi, Frankie, as well. So another couple things. Matthew Amos wanted to give us a shout out and say, I really like your Halloween last week on Breakfast Television when I was Mr. Conehead. Yes, indeed. I was Mr. Conehead. Okay. I have a lot of things to tell you about first off. So first off, let's get through some ticket giveaways that we're going to do. So what we have is I have a couple different things that we can give you for a ticket giveaway. One ticket giveaway, which is going to be a family pack. So it's going to be 2 adults, 2 children. It's going to be a total of 4 tickets to the Royal Winter Agricultural Fair. That's going to run all the way through to November 12th, to the end of this weekend. Once again, if you want these tickets, all you have to do is hit me up. And how you're going to hit me up, I want you to email me this time. So Frankie with an IE at frankieflowers.com. As well, we also have 10 pairs of tickets to go to the season show or the Fall Cottage Life Show. The season show is something that's going to give you inspiration with Christmas. And I will be at both these shows this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, speaking. One show, I'll be talking about some outdoor Christmas trends. The other show, which is the Cottage Life show that I'll be speaking at, I'll be talking about protecting your garden from things like bunnies and deer and whatnot in the winter months. To do that as well, all you need to do is email me, Frankie@frankieflowers.com. Once again, Frankie with an IE at frankieflowers.com, and we'll give you those tickets away as well. Now, I want to let you know, I know a lot of people have signed up for the newsletter, and normally I in terms of the giveaways, I say, hey, you got to sign up for the newsletter. But let's say that you've already signed up for the newsletter. Well, that's not fair for you. You're loyal. So that's why I'm like, just email me, Frankie@frankieflowers.com, and just tell me whether you want the Royal. Well, I only have one family pass for the Royal. I'm just going to select them at random for that. Okay, so if you haven't joined the newsletter, I want to show you what the newsletter looks like. So what you're missing out on. So here's a look at this month's newsletter that came out on Monday. And you can see it's just new for November, a little bit about November. And this is a little celebration to my parents. We're celebrating. November's a big month in my house. My oldest son is born in the month of November. My sister's born in the month of November. And my parents celebrate their anniversary. There's a little bit about the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair that I went to. And then also you get a to-do list for what you should be doing in the month of November. Little shout out to my family business, Bradford Greenhouses. That's some photos of the different Christmas designs that we have at the Barrie location, but Bradford as well. That's my son, Gavin, that's there. Me just chatting, I went and bought an EV, an electric vehicle, but I bought a hybrid, which is called the Volvo Recharge. So a little bit about that. And then you can see I'm going to be at the Seasons Christmas Show Saturday, November the 11th at 12, and the Fall Cottage Life Show on Sunday, November the 12th. That should not be Saturday. That should be Sunday at 1 p.m. So if you want to join the newsletter, you just go to the website, go to frankieflowers.com, go to the bottom of the page, and you can join the website right there. So we got Tammy. Tammy's saying, hey, why am I seeing little flies by my plants? Those little flies by your plants are what are known as fungus gnats. So fungus gnats, the reason why they're there is you're giving them probably the ideal environment for a fungus gnat to be there. What does fungus gnats need? Fungus gnats, in order for them to thrive and survive, they need a damp location. So they need moist soil. So allow your soil to dry out. They'll also feed on decaying leaves that maybe are sitting on the top of the soil. So if you have any browning or leaves that have fallen, clean those up. Those are the two things. Next up, cut back on your watering, clean up. You can put yellow sticky traps down, which are you can purchase them on Amazon or go to a garden gallery or go to a Canadian Tire or go to a Rona. Those guys there will all have the yellow sticky straps. The other thing that you can do is after you allow your soil to dry out, just dust a little bit of cinnamon powder on them. That will actually minimize the amount of fungus gnats that you're going to have. So those are fungus gnats, the reason why you have them. We got another question here right now. Hi, Frankie. When is the best time to prune roses? So now, and that was my list in my newsletter, we talk about the roses that we're pruning at this time of the year. First off, if we have any rose, we're pruning it so that if we had freezing rain or heavy wet snow, we could get freezing rain in some areas on Wednesday during the evening. So tomorrow night into Wednesday, we could get some freezing rain in Southern Ontario. So we're pruning any of those long stems that could then bend and break. So we could do that on Rosa rugosa, the shrub roses, and all the rest. This time, if we had, let's say, a Floribunda, a Hybrid Tea, or a Grandiflora rose, those are all rose varieties that have been grafted. And because they've been grafted, that's a weak point. So you see the stems come down, and right near where the stems come down to where the roots are, you'll see this circular area, and that's the graft point. So what we're going to do is we're going to prune off the whole rose. We're going to cut it down to about 18 to 24 inches in height. We're then going to hill some soil around the base of that rose and hill up around the graft point, and that's how we're going to protect the rose. So after they bloom, prune roses, but pruning roses now in late fall, we're pruning them to protect them at this time of the year. Samantha, hello, don't think my Boston ferns likes me, looking mad. Any thoughts? Boston ferns, beautiful plant, but when they come indoors, or if they're indoors at this time of the year, where they're going to struggle is with humidity. So as we're getting into colder temperatures, our heaters, our furnaces are coming on in our homes. When our furnaces come on in our homes, they're actually pulling moisture from the atmosphere. And by pulling moisture, there's not as much humidity in our home. Boston ferns love humidity. So adding a humidifier to the room where the Boston fern is, good for you, good for the Boston fern. Misting it, really important as well, just to add it. So don't put too much more water, but misting it would be very important. If you had a bathroom that has a window in it and you're in that bathroom and you're always having showers in that bathroom, sometimes it's a good spot for the Boston fern that's out there. My Kimberly Queen ferns are another variety of ferns that I use in my containers. Right now, they are still thriving outdoors. And I went to pull them out of my containers. They're so rooted in that I can't even pull them out of my containers. So that's a reminder that next season, if I'm going to use Kimberly Queens, I may want to plant them in a pot in the container. So then that way in the fall, I could just lift them out. So that's a lesson that I learned. So you're always learning lessons that are out there as well. So Debbie, hello, Frankie. Thank you so much for all your great advice. My pleasure. As I'm giving your advice, you advice, and all of you advice, I'm learning a little bit about what's going on in your garden. I'm keeping myself sharp, and I'm talking about something I'm passionate about. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to be spending the day tomorrow with Amanda Weldon. Amanda's who I do a lot of my videos with. She's actually the one that shoots and edits them and helps me with some of the creative content that's there. If there are some videos on gardening or even recipes or indoor plants or different decor ideas that you want to know about, please let me know. Please, in the comments, put in there or even email me what you would like a video on, and we'll start doing some different work out there. So if there's information you need to know, then let me know. We got Christine saying hello from Prince Edward County, beautiful part of the province of Ontario. Lucky to live there, aren't you? Good luck, everyone. Says Marianne, in terms of winning out there, in terms of maybe some of the draws that we're doing. Daniela from Brampton giving us a shout out as well. Jen G says loves the newsletter. I'm happy you guys do. A lot of work goes into the newsletter, and that's my whole idea. My whole idea is to continue to keep you thriving and inspiring you to get out there and garden, because I feel that growing plants gives us something that's beautiful to look at, like the plant that I have to my left here, the pothos. It makes us feel better. It can purify the air. And then for outdoor environments, it can provide habitat for wildlife, that is, during the growing season, can provide us food, can make us want to eat better because we have more nutritious food, and get kids involved in watching something grow in terms of process. So there's so much with gardening that you just got to do. Blake is saying, hi, Frankie, from Island Grove. Blake Smith. I don't know where Island Grove is, Blake Smith. I'm going to type that up right now. I'm just going to type up Island Grove. So because I know if I don't know where it is, other people won't know where it is too. Island Grove is, I see that there's an East Point Marina in Island Grove. I'm just going to zoom out on the map here just so that I know for myself where Island Grove is. This is me getting curious because I'm like, oh, it's out by Snake Island. So Island Grove, hey, you're not too far from Georgina. You're up there at close to Roach's Point, out by my friends in the Sutton area. So shout out to you there in Island Grove. I learned something. I know that area. I don't know why I never knew it was called Island Grove that's out there. Patricia, winter sowing, yes or no? Zone 6A, Brantford. So you could do, there are some different, if you were to do a cold frame, if you're doing winter sowing, a reminder, when it comes to sowing seeds need a certain temperature, soil temperature that is, to germinate. So if they're in an environment where they're not getting that soil temperature, they're not going to germinate. So if you're winter sowing, let's say that you want to use a cold frame outdoors, that cold frame will help you. And you couldn't do some lettuce greens. Really, in the month of November, you could do some sowing where you can harvest some of the mesclun mix and some of those winter greens into the month of December. But as soon as we get to January and February, those are the period of times that the cold frames don't really, they need almost a period where they're not going to be used. If you're winter sowing indoors inside your home, the challenge that we have is the lack of daylight hours. So if we want to grow things like basil inside or some different herbs, then I really recommend using a grow system like an Arrow Garden. So an Arrow Garden is a fantastic system, and that's the Miracle Grow Arrow Garden, that you can grow herbs and even some leafy greens and vegetables indoors easily. Carol saying that she had a thunderstorm in Ajax. Carol, yeah, we did have some weather push through, and I was surprised by that weather. I thought there would be some isolated showers that would move through, but I didn't think that it would be in the form of some of the heavier downpours that we've seen this evening. So I'm a little shocked as the weather guy for you as well. So I'm sorry. Wet weather was in my forecast, but thunderstorms were not in my forecast. Sandra, When I brought the last of my tomatoes in this year, so many are turning brown. I haven't had this happen before. I had to throw out so many. So if they turn brown, they could have had a little bit of blight within them. So that is a rot and or blight that's there. The other reason why they could have turned brown, if they were outdoors and we did have some colder temperatures where we did have some earlier this, and well, late October, we did have some temperatures that dropped to almost -5 at night. So the browning could actually be just from frost damage that happened as well. So it could have been a blight and or frost damage. My guess would be a blight because we did have some periods where it was quite moist out there and there was a lot of blight, a lot of disease and a lot of tomatoes this year. Marlene, hi Frankie, when should I cut my asparagus? Notice it's going yellow. Now's the time to cut it. As soon as it's going yellow, it's going into its dormancy period. Of course, the asparagus are the spikes that kind of pop up. That's what we're eating, consuming. Thereafter, it's almost like an asparagus fern, almost appears to look like a fern. That fern, that green that's on there, gives energy back to the root for next season. When it turns around brown, that's when it's yellowing, forgive me, and or brown. That's when it's going into dormancy. That's when you cut it off. We got Debbie with a question and or comment. Hi, Frankie. I pulled out my dahlia tubers on the weekend. What is the best way to store them for the winter? So dahlia tubers, you can store them really, its temperature is really key. So a dark place that is going to be above freezing, that is going to be fairly dry and cool throughout the course of the season. So a fruit cellar is really important. If you can allow them to, all the dirt that was on them from this season, if you can allow that to dry and then almost take a brush and try to brush as much as that dirt off. I like to store them in dry sawdust or even dried shredded newspaper. And I like to put them in a box or even in an open, even like some of those plastic crates that you see the produce in. Those are great crates that you can store because there's good air circulation that happens. But the reason why I like to put them in shredded newspaper or dry sawdust is that will pull any of the excess moisture away from those tubers. Then during the course of the winter, while you're storing them, you want to check on them every once in a while. And you cut all the foliage off, by the way. You want to check them because if they are rotting, any of those sections that are rotting, you cut the sections out, or if they're the full tuber rotted, then you throw those out so it doesn't spread to others. Christina. Hi, Frankie. Can we still plant sod now? I'm in Vaughan. Yes, you can. I actually saw Xander Sod. It's just one of the many sod companies that were out there. I saw their truck driving this morning when I was driving to work. And yeah, I've laid sod down as long as you can get sod and there's no frost. You can lay sod. I've laid sod. Remember Moss Park years ago in Toronto had a bunch of damage that happened to it. Myself, as well as many sod growers and some landscapers from Landscape Ontario, we went there and resodded Moss Park in the second week of December, and it did amazingly well. This is another shout out there to Marianne. What are the best houseplants for beginners to start with? So you're always trying to pick the right plant for the right place. Some easy plants to start with. Spider plants, inexpensive, easy. Pothos, which is this beautiful plant that's right here, super easy. Zamifolia, it's called the ZZ plant. Another super easy plant that you can grow indoors. Even Monstera. Monstera are pretty easy as well, but it's really trying to figure out what your light is. Peace lily, if you have low light, fantastic, big leaf plant that will thrive and do very well as long as you have some humidity. But once again, my top 3 easy plants for people would be spider plant, pothos, and ZZ plant. Those are my top 3 for beginners. Tammy says, thanks for the advice. Thanks for the question. You're welcome. Thanks for joining me this evening as well. Well, this afternoon, this evening. We got a little shout out from Quebec. Carol Jones from Quebec. I was in Quebec not too long ago. I'll probably be back in the Mount Tremblant area just in December for my son for his training of skiing. By the way, just to set the scene, I got tea happening right now. Over in the kitchen, I got my sauce just simmering. So as soon as I get off this at 5:30, I'm going to go make some pasta for the boys. Then we're in the car and we got to drive to Vertical Zone so my son can do trampoline training tonight for his skiing. So never a dull moment in my life, I'll tell you. Mary, cacti or cactus. There are, if you're thinking about easy plants, there are some cacti that can be quite easy, but another easy plant that I think every home should have is aloe vera. Aloe vera is a great medicinal plant that's out there. Then we have Judy saying great advice as always. Well, thank you. Jennifer, steps for bringing herbs in and drying them. So there's a couple different options. So first off, you have another option instead of drying herbs. Let's say that we have a lot of basil. So what we can do with the basil is we can harvest all the basil and even some of the not the woody stems, but even some of the more softer stems. And we can harvest them and we can put all that into a wonderful blender and blend it down. And then what we can do is we can take that blended mix and we can get some herb. They're actually ice cube containers for herbs. And what we can do is we can fill those little cubes together with that beautiful little mixture of the basil, and we can freeze them into ice cubes. So that will happen is during the winter season, we just pop those ice cubes and we put them right inside the good old sauce that I'm cooking, for instance, today. Rosemary, oregano, sage, thyme, all those can be easily dried by either just cutting them and then hanging them in a dark area. So if you have a garage that it would have to be a heated garage, or if you had a fairly dry space that's dark that you could hang them in. Sometimes you'll even hang them into a closet, those areas, but we're drying them upside down. That's a great way to dry them. And then there are some different, what do you call them? I'm trying to remember what we call them right now. Dehydrators. You can actually even purchase a dehydrator. And those dehydrators are another way that you can dry your herbs that are out there. So there's some options that are for you. We got Jacqueline Bryant. Here's a question from Matthew really quickly. When is the BT Breakfast Xmas show? Going to have some announcements about every year we have a BT Christmas show where we invite all the viewers of Breakfast Television to watch the show. I can tell you that this year it's going to be at a new venue. And this year the venue is meant for royalty. That's all I'm going to say. We got this question here. Hope to store and keep gladioli. Same process as the dahlias, where we're taking those corms of the glads and we're allowing, first we wait for the foliage to yellow. Then we're going to lift them out of the ground, right? So they should be yellow now after you got a few frosts. We lift them out of the ground. We try to cut the foliage just above where that mass, that corm is forming. Then we're going to put them out so that some of that soil can dry off them a little bit, or just put them in the garage where we're not getting any rain and we can dry. Then you're going to take a paintbrush with no paint on it, and you're just going to brush them. So we kind of knock all that dirt that's off there. Then we're going to store them. You can put them in a shoe box or any type of box, dried sawdust or dried. You can even use peat moss, or we could use dried shredded newspaper, because that, when you're storing it will pull moisture out of them. And then we're going to put them in a cool, dark space that stays above freezing and dry throughout the winter months. And then we'll repot them in pots, if you wanted to, in mid-spring next year, or even early spring next year, so in the month of May. We got another question here. I will check your newsletter out. Thanks for your advice, CJ Farnell. Thanks, guys. So once again, you just go to frankieflowers.com, go to the very bottom of the website. That's where you can sign up with the newsletter. Each and every month, I promise you, I will give you something to smile about, something that you'll learn from, and something that will maybe even make you a better gardener, or even hopefully just make you have a better month. That's kind of the key that's out there. We got another question here, or comment. Connie, we have a severe hailstorm with thunder and lightning in Brantford. So that, when you actually have hail after we had lightning, that means that we probably had a cold front move through, because we did have some warm air. And that creates a lot of lift in the atmosphere. And that lift in the atmosphere then creates that energy that can produce hail. And really what hail is in the upper atmosphere, it's really rain that falls that hasn't melted yet. And a severe hailstorm, Connie, I'd like to know more. So if you have any pictures from Brantford, can you email me some of those photos? Frankie@frankieflowers.com, Frankie@frankieflowers.com, because I would love to show some of those on Breakfast Television as well. I had a severe hailstorm as well at my house in Bradford a few years ago. That hailstorm did damage the shingles on my home, my eaves trough. I had to get them all replaced. It actually damaged my vehicles, and most, if not all, my plants bounced back. But I did have to get my cars fixed. I had to get the roof fixed, and it was a lot of a pain in the butt. So hopefully the hail, hopefully everything's okay there. Hopefully it's okay. Christine. And I'm going to check on that too. My hostas are in the pots. Will they last through the winter with just straw and leaves covering? So if we can, with your hostas, group them all together. So you want to put them all together in an area that you think that snow will collect and store. Snow will work. So then what you're going to do, the straw and leaves are really good. But as well, if you can go buy some bags of garden soil, it doesn't have to be expensive garden soil. You're going to go buy some bags of garden soil. And around the sides of the pots, when you're putting them up against, lean the bags of garden soil around the base of those pots. That's a little extra insulation that's there. That'll hug them all nice and tight together. And then with the snow load that's on there, they should survive. Hostas are very hardy, extremely hardy. So they're one plant that I would say you're okay to do that with. Okay. Where can I get sawdust? Sawdust, you can purchase it. You can actually buy it at some pet food stores. So some pets will be using sawdust. You can get that because it's sometimes bedding for different animals that are out there. And sometimes you can go to your Home Depot and even ask if they had any sawdust when they're doing their cuts, or any of the hardware stores that sell lumber. Sometimes they'll have some sawdust as well. Christina, thanks for answering my questions. No problem whatsoever. Gina, give me an okay for you as well. T-Bone, my good friend T-Bone. Good evening, Frank. 2 more days of carrot harvest to finish. T-Bone, I was watching, I think Van Luke, this is when we can talk farming here and you guys can see where I live. In Bradford, I noticed today, I think it was Van Luke that was harvesting and got the last celery off the fields today in the Hull Marsh. They were covering with a frost blanket. There are still, you're lucky that you got 2 more days of carrot harvest to finish, because I'm seeing some fields out there with still lots more carrots and beets to be harvested. Of course, some potatoes out there and some parsnips as well to be harvested as well. We got Mary Ann. Hi, Mary Ann. Thanks, Frank, saying. Joe giving us a shout out there. What's the best way to amend soil for planting garlic? As long as you have a well-drained soil that's a fairly good quality, garlic can grow in fairly, you don't have to have the best soil, but if you had a soil that's actually a triple mix, so let's just say that you had a good, decent garden soil, I would just add some manure, some sheep manure and or cow manure to it, mix that into the containers or into the garden that you're planting in. A reminder with garlic, we're pulling the garlic bulb, we're pulling the cloves off. We're taking that cloves and planting it 3 times in depth, spacing them about 6 inches apart. And now is a perfect time to plant garlic that's out there. Ashley from Crank and Sprocket, my good friend. Good evening. Is it okay to fertilize plants in our outdoor gardens now, or is it too late? The only fertilizer that I'd be using on outdoor plants right now is I'd be using a fertilizer with a higher phosphorus that was more for a quick start transplant. So if you've done any transplanting, that is the only fertilizer that I would use at this time. Christina is saying, another question. I have some tulip bulbs from the Netherlands. For the past 2 years, I kept them in my cool room as they didn't have a garden to plant them in. Do you think they're still good to be planted now? I only planted them once after I purchased them. You could try. My guess would be if they're still firm, there's still some life in them. But my guess would be if you planted them, they're just going to push foliage out. Is it worth the risk? Why not? Right? Why not? But if I'm going to guess, I don't think they put much bloom out whatsoever. They'd actually just put foliage out for you. Jennifer, but I could be wrong on that. I would still go and chance it. Thanks for answering my question. You're such a great job in sharing knowledge and enthusiasm. I'm just happy I could read enthusiasm. I could actually say that word. You're welcome, Jennifer. It's such a pleasure to be here. We got a surprise to see you at this time. I was wondering how far back to cut my crawling roses. Thanks. So your ground cover roses, those guys there, you can either leave them be, or you can cut them back even up to a half of their size. Or what you can do is, if they're low to the ground right now, not going to be affected by any heavy snows or freezing rain, we can leave them and just prune off any dead wood in the spring. I tend to always like to give everything a cut back, especially roses at this time of the year, and I would cut them back about a half size. I've moved to Mondays at 5, just based upon my boys' schedule on the weekends with sport and other activities. Monday at 5, I know that from 5 to 5:30, I should be home. So that's why I'm doing it. Already signed up for the newsletter. Thank you. The best. Love that. We got Lacey giving us a good evening from Oshawa out there as well. Here's another question. Good question as well. So we need to cut long grasses back at this time of year. So you do have an option. So sometimes people will leave their ornamental grasses up at this time of year. And the reason being is if we don't have a lot of snow, you can still see the animation, the plumes, and they still give us a little bit of love in the garden space. Let's say that you have a busy spring and you won't have that much time in the spring and you have time now, you can go back and cut them back. But you can also cut them back in the spring. Yes, will we get some heavy snow and could we have the potential of freezing rain that could mat them down? Yes, but in my experience, the ornamental grasses will still bounce back thereafter. So if you want to watch them, look at them, and some of those plumes that are on there will provide some seed source for some of the birds that are there. And even some of the grass that mats down will provide habitat for other overwintering insects that are there. However, if you have time and you like a cleaner garden, you can cut them back now. There's no problem on that too. So you have those two different choices. Ashley, you're welcome. I'm going to do one more question because we're at the 30-minute mark and I got to make dinner. Hi, Frankie. Do I cut back my sedum? Thank you. Your sedum, of course, after they freeze, they're going to almost look like they rot down and die back. So wait for a couple of frosts and you'll see how they almost become a little bit mushy. Cut them back and you're off to the races. For all those that joined me today, the other shout out that I want to give you guys and give you guys a head up as well is this week, Wednesday, Thursday night up at Bradford Greenhouse's Garden Gallery in Barrie. There's the Christmas soiree. That's an evening where you can take a look at all the different Christmas decor that's there, and it's worth it. There's also some food sampling. There's some live music. There's some different seminars that are happening at the time. It is a ticketed event, but you can go to bradfordgreenhouses.com. That will also happen in Bradford on Friday night. They're all great events. I'm super proud of my family for what they accomplished, and the Christmas decor is unbelievable that's out there. I hope you guys have a blooming great week. I'll see you next Monday. I hope I inspired you. I hope that this evening maybe made you smile a little bit. And if it didn't, then get happier, man. No, I'm just joking. Have a great day, guys. I will see you soon, tomorrow morning. If you want to watch breakfast television, I'll be in the morning.